LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. That's right. Now, behind a paywall, The Athletic did a list. Lists are great, creates controversies. They did a list of the 75 greatest players in NBA history. And Michael Jordan finished number one, with LeBron James going second. And that sparked some comments from Rich Paul, the notorious Rich Paul, a very controversial lightning rod of a figure around the NBA. So if you didn't see this one, and maybe you did not because you don't pay for The Athletic. So Rich Paul said that LeBron James and Michael Jordan's paths to greatness were equal. That there's no difference here. The quote, the road for LeBron, this is from Rich Paul, the road for LeBron was just as hard, if not harder, than the road was for Michael. Quote continued. For a number of reasons, and I think the biggest reason is everyone wants you to do something the way somebody else did it previously. Of course, alluding to the fact that people wanted LeBron to be like Michael Jordan. Quote also finished up with, there were more people, Rich Paul said, that smiled and hoped LeBron failed than there were ever rooting for him to succeed in the beginning, close quote. Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's discuss the question, LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Equally tough road. Thumbs up or thumbs down? I'm going to go first. 2 thumbs down. 2 thumbs down on this one. I've got Monopoly, Obstacle Course, and Valedictorian. And we'll combine all of these things together. Now, to tip off the festivities here, LeBron James has been on, I don't think I'm wrong in saying this, correct me if I'm wrong, he has been on Easy Street since he was tagged for greatness playing AAU ball back in the day. And it is my position that anyone with a functioning brain and an IQ above 40 knows this to be true. And we also realize that we are reacting to comments made by Rich Paul, who has a major conflict of interest. If this was a courtroom, his testimony would be kicked out. The prosecution will say, hey, wait a minute, this witness has been compromised. Rich Paul, a longtime friend, a business partner. The Rich Paul empire is a product of riding the coattails of LeBron James. He's been on the LeBron gravy train, for a long time. Good for him. Yeah, he picked up LeBron as a pal, and LeBron took off, and Rich Paul was right alongside for the ride, saying, hey, let me make my money on your back. And that's exactly what Rich Paul's been able to do. And so when you're a business partner and you're a friend, it does have a way of influencing opinions. It's kind of like asking someone's mother what they think of their son who's in trouble. Of course, mom's going to defend the son. That's how that works. But LeBron, and I remember this because I was in that world of promoting and gossip and things like that, the next thing in sports. LeBron was a snot-nosed punk when he was labeled a basketball prodigy, a hoops prodigy. And I was doing my gossip website at the time. It was the early days of Fox Sports Radio, so I was working every day of the week. I had the gossip website 5 days a week. Well, I actually did that like 7, but most of it was 5. And then I had the radio stuff on the weekends. And LeBron popped up on my radar. The first time he popped up was over 20 years ago when I started hearing about LeBron. But the first big wow moment was the cover boy of Sports Illustrated. And I remember the headline. And if you're old, you might remember the headline too. It was The Chosen One. LeBron was 17 years old. He was a high school junior. The Chosen One. And that was back when it mattered to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Now it's irrelevant, but back in those days, it was a big deal. And so, headline, right? And LeBron, he had become, at 17, he was a Monopoly player. Now, you know what a Monopoly player is. A Monopoly player is pass, go, and collect $200 million. Or in this case, pass, go, skip Duke, skip Kentucky, and go directly to the NBA. LeBron went on a warp speed into the NBA world, and you had the Cavaliers, among other teams, but the Cavs were successful at tanking to get the number one pick and keep LeBron in his home region. And while the path was not without speed bumps, because people do have issues with the curse of high expectations, and LeBron was like the Tasmanian devil when he came into the NBA world. Now, compare and contrast that with Michael Jordan. So to continue the story here, MJ, on the other hand, was not considered a low-key genius of basketball at age 17. He had an obstacle course to navigate through before becoming what is now the mythical figure of his airness. And there is a story LeBron, or not LeBron, but Jordan likes to tell. Jordan loves to tell the story of being cut from his high school basketball team. And it's one of those stories we bring up, when the legend becomes the fact, you print the legend, right? And it's Liberty Valance. And so this is a Liberty Valance situation. Jordan was technically not cut from his high school basketball team. You probably don't realize that if you've not heard the rest of the story. But he was demoted. So in a way, it's a version of the truth. It's not the whole truth. It wasn't like Jordan was kicked off the team. He just was not allowed to play varsity basketball. He was demoted to the junior varsity squad. Because you got to remember, this was a different world. This is in the days before the internet, days before television was really big. Cable television wasn't around. Late 1970s when Jordan was a high school player. And in those days, you had to pay your dues. You had to pay your dues, right? And Jordan had to pay his dues there. Before he was promoted, they had enough players on the senior team, so Jordan was left to play on the junior varsity. You were not given the bag of diamonds. You had to go out and earn the bag of diamonds, and so Jordan had to sit back and be the greatest JV player of all time. And so he paid his dues, and then eventually we know he catapulted his way to the top of the mountain. But there were more speed bumps, because at North Carolina, while the Tar Heels were having great success, Michael Jordan was marginalized. He was a system player in college. Now, LeBron never even went to college. He didn't have to worry about any of that rigmarole. And as the famous line goes, and it's a little outdated now because people have moved on from it, but the line for a long time early in Jordan's career when he took off like an Air Force fighter jet, when he took off, Jordan, the line was, and I still remember it because we used to use it all the time, the only man able to stop Michael Jordan was Dean Smith. That's it. Because Dean Smith, who was the coach, his college coach with the Tar Heels, he had Michael Jordan as a system player. He averaged 17 points a game in 3 years in North Carolina. And he was surrounded by like big players in that era who would go on and play in the NBA. James Worthy, Sam Perkins, Brad Daugherty, among others, that would become NBA players. And then, of course, we know he goes to Chicago and he's a supernova, and everyone's like, what the F was that guy Dean Smith doing? And what was going on there at North Carolina? Dean Smith, a legendary figure in college basketball circles. All right, so the last thing here. Let's travel back here to Rich Paul's comments on the pushback LeBron James received. Now, there was another part of the quote we must put under the microscope as we parse the words here. And Rich Paul said, there were more people that smiled and hoped LeBron failed than there were rooting for him to succeed in the beginning. All right, I'm gonna buzz this. All right, this is what's known as selective omission. LeBron James, here's how I remember it. LeBron was the catch of the day. Everyone loves the next big thing. People were excited. They wanted to see him, and some of his high school games I remember we were on ESPN, and it was a big deal, and people wanted to see LeBron, see what the hype was all about, right? Would he live up to the buzz? And there was a lot, as I remember, a lot of positive energy about LeBron. And he was the breath of fresh air. And the star, right? The first couple years he was on the scene, he was the valedictorian of the world of basketball. It wasn't until he went to that Boys and Girls Club in Connecticut with Jim Gray. That is the moment where the powder keg went, boom. The tide turned. And because then after that, LeBron upset a lot of people. Like, what a douche, the way he did that. And then you mix LeBron becoming a political advocate and not even hiding, not even trying to pretend like he wants everyone to watch him play basketball. No, he was an advocate for the Democratic Party right after that, right around that point, and the floodgates had opened, right? And juxtapose that next to Michal Jordan, whether you like him or not, he was apolitical, and that great line, which was a wonderful line, that Republicans buy sneakers too, and you understand the difference. And maybe you're fine with LeBron. You think it's great that he's political and you agree with his politics and you think it is wonderful, but that is a separating point. And so I will disagree with Rich Paul because I remember it. And I was doing sports radio all of LeBron's career, and I do recall there was this love affair with LeBron early on. And then, as I said, the moment that turned was at a Boys and Girls Club in Connecticut with the decision. That was when it all went away. And also, let's also be fair here, that Michal Jordan, I'm on Team Jordan, but I recall at the end of his run in Chicago, and then he came back with the Washington Wizards, there was Michal Jordan fatigue. People were tired of Jordan at the end, that he had been on the scene and dominating, and people were done with him. Like, they wanted someone else to be in the spotlight, in the center square, and so we also had that. So there were a lot of things involved in this, but again, just to wrap it up here, Rich Paul, dead wrong with his analysis, and he's biased. I expect him to be wrong. Listen, if LeBron paid me millions of dollars over the years and created a business for me where I'm set and like 7 generations are set, and I can date Adele because I happen to be friends with LeBron, then I would kiss LeBron's ass too.